This is Rugby Unity. I am David Pembroke, and today it is Ewen McKenzie, and my good self, Eddie Jones, is not with us because he is on tour in Australia with the Japanese U23 team. And on tour for Eddie Jones means unavailable, means every moment is taken by coaching the team. Ewen McKenzie, you toured with Eddie Jones on a number of occasions. It's probably useful, I suppose, to give people a bit of an insight because everyone hears about this work ethic of Eddie Jones, and he certainly does fill in the days.
Well, I think the word tour, in inverted commas, there's no tour. If you're a staff member, there's no touring. There's no tourist aspect to it all. It's in fact, because you're in close proximity, it's actually just more toil. So a lot of things happen on those tours, depending, and typically in the Wallaby context, the tour's at the end of the season. So the tour coincided with the end of season review. So all of the staff had to sort of put together a season, review and then discuss that with Eddie along the way, amongst the games and things you were playing and whatever. So it was busy. There wasn't a lot of touring. There was the odd dinner maybe at the end, but pretty arduous time.
And starts early, finishes late, 7 days a week, and takes snatches here and there. Like yesterday afternoon, he rang me as he was watching the Tigers versus Parramatta. I wanted to talk about what he was watching with the Rugby League, but always looking for some sort of insight, some sort of discussion, something that will help improve the team.
Yeah, well, I think that's how he functions. And obviously, if you're a staff member, you're in the same space, so you're expected to be out there trying to find new and interesting areas in your particular discipline. So, the idea is to bring things to the table. And, I remember being as an assistant coach, I spent time with various AFL outfits on game day, during the week's preparation, different teams, rugby league teams as well. So, the idea is everyone's out there doing something. So there's never, in fact, the off-season in the Wallaby staff perspective, if you're an assistant coach, you work harder in the off-season than you do in-season. I mean, the in-season is a routine to each week. It's already planned, right? You've got a calendar. You've got a very specific calendar about when things happen, so you don't need to worry about that. You just have to be prepared for each element. So the things that move are the tactical aspects of the game. So obviously reviewing and looking for opportunity. But in the off season, you're looking for the one percenters, the way we can advance the total program, and everyone in their specific discipline has to get out there and has to propose a professional development path or professional development program for the off season to make sure that you're still enhancing yourself as a coach, but also bringing information to the table that might be useful to the program the following year. And the other part is talent identification. You're out watching games, looking for the next players. You don't just rely on, you talk to the super coaches and whatever, but you're out there looking for the players below that might be able to come through, that might be able to make that jump. A la Jorgensen, for instance, who jumped very quickly at a young age into the national program. So, there's two aspects to the off season, and you're busy. There's not a lot of downtime.
Can you give us an example of something that throughout your career, perhaps, that you observed on one of these missions to understand that you were able to bring back and integrate into one of your programs?
There are small things. If you're looking at other sports, there's not a direct transference. But if you take the AFL, one of the things you'd see is the way others do it, and you might say, well, we wouldn't do it that way because, but they do it that way because, and the reason might be historical. There's a lot of, in AFL, there has been in the past, back I'm talking 10, 15 years ago now, there was a lot of stuff that was done because that was the way it was done, and no one had sort of questioned it. So so when you talk about things like travel, we have one of the bigger travel schedules, when we're talking week-to-week travel. rugby union has one of the biggest, where you've got to go across the world and play, and how you might deal with that. Cricket travels a lot, but they travel and then they set up a base and they'll play in a country for a period of weeks. So things like jet lag and stuff aren't in play. So you might things like jet lag's been an interesting aspect. Talking to other sports that might move, the Socceroos were bringing their players back in on literally the day before the game or the 2 days before the game. They'll bring them in and they're just playing and then flying out again. So they weren't even trying to worry about the time zone. And that's one of the things that we did spend time on is, for instance, the test before the last World Cup. The first test was at Loftus. Eddie's first test back, and prior to the World Cup was at Loftus. Now that's a tough assignment in Super Rugby, whatever, to go there to play at altitude, to play with the time zone. And we talked about, we've always talked about different ways of doing that. I took a team late. I took the Waratahs there late because everyone tended to go there 10 days before and try and assimilate with the time zone. And we always had issues with that, with players struggling with their sleep patterns and the like. And then players are on melatonin and things like that to try and get their sleep patterns back. And so the doctor's working hard in that space. And then I took an opposite approach on one Super Rugby where we actually took the Waratahs 2 days before. They wouldn't let me go the day before because if the plane was cancelled or something. So 2 days before we just flew, never worried about the time zone, et cetera, played the game. Yeah, we lost, but we didn't lose by a cricket score or anything like that. We were competitive. And so that provided a counter position, and that's probably borrowed from maybe what soccer does, where you don't worry about the time zone, you just come in and play. So that's just an example. So the question is whether you got the ticket to try and do something different. Otherwise, everyone just keeps doing the same thing, and you go there and you're there for a longer period of time, and then that plays into diet and other things that come into play. Sometimes people get sick if you're just in a different country. It doesn't matter where you are. You get sick because the water's a bit different, whatever. So you're trying to manage all of that. And it's not just the bottle. You're on the bottled water, but you don't know who's washing, what the salad leaves are washed in at the buffet. You don't know. So it's sort of, that's other things come into play. So everyone's got to work hard. And it's, so you're looking for those little things that might make a difference, and you've got to be able to try that. So there's hundreds of things that Eddie's seen or done, and his assistant coaches, and it would have been the same in the England setup. Would have been the same. They all would have been working hard. I know what the assistant coaches' lives are. They're working hard to try and find 1%ers. So he's got a lot of people out there looking to try and find a way. Now people might say that's over the top or whatever, but in the world of professional sport, the little things matter, and you see that it doesn't matter which game you watch. It gets down to things, to little moments, and some of those is a bounce of the ball, sure, but some of those are things that can be perhaps managed better. So that's what you're looking for.
In that balance between risk and reward, and ultimately making a decision, how do you go about that? How do you ultimately get from the consideration to a decision where you say, okay, I'm going to actually do this?
Well, that's the head coach. I mean, you've got the assistant coaches are providing information, and it's up to the head coach to make the call. So, I early on when I started head coaching, I wrote it on my wall in the office about, do the same thing, get the same results. So that sort of tried to spur me on to actually try and do something a little bit different, So I wrote on my wall because there are lots of decisions you make about recruitment, about retaining players, about getting rid of players, and you've got to keep reminding yourself that if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results. So you've got to keep exploring. There is a framework to the week that's governed by the organising body about when you've got to fly. So then you break down all of that, but it's whether you can do things differently. And I see Eddie, when he's talking on these podcasts, he talks about varying his weeks to freshen players up. You've got to have your eyes on. It's not something you can pre-program. You have to have the knowledge. You put the program in place, but you also have to read what's going on, and that's where he's very good at adjusting the program on the run, and that causes a bit of chaos for all of the staff. But if you adjust the program on the run, it's for a reason, because he's reading the body language, he's reading what the players or whatever. There's lots of ways of getting feedback during the game, post-game, whatever, during training. So he's reading that and making those decisions, and that's what the head coach has to do. Like, you've got to make the calls, and you've got to be, as a head coach, you've got the opportunity to be brave and try things. You don't just have to keep doing things because that's what everyone else does, and you can see that and I bang on about all the time about the kickoffs, right? But you watch how many teams just kick off the same way they kick off, and so there's a predictable response, and maybe that's what you want, but you don't have to do that. You can do it differently, as long as you're prepared and they're not. You want to be prepared for what you're going to do, and hopefully they're not prepared, because then you're not giving them something that's predictable. And that's how I think about the game. Others think differently. It's, some people like a predictable approach to the game. I find it a bit tedious.
So we have had lots of coaches and assistant coaches working hard in Europe at the moment. The round of 16 of the Investec European Rugby Championship is over. A number of results: Bordeaux 64, Leicester 14, Glasgow 25, the Bulls 21, Bath 31, Saracens 22, Toulouse 59, Bristol 26, Sale 26, Harlequins 17, Leinster 49, Edinburgh 31. And in the first match of the round, Northampton 49 defeated Cast 41, and Toulon 28, too good for the Stormers 27. Ewen McKenzie, it's a big tournament. It's a very prominent, and obviously some of the rugby that was played in the round of 16 was stunning, but it is a tournament that has not grabbed the attention of the world of rugby. You can sit here in the Southern Hemisphere and these great matches would have drifted past without too much notice unless you're paying attention. We've spoke about it, about this time, I think almost last year, about the fact that this European Championship does not get the coverage that it deserves globally. You have been involved in the tournament. Perhaps take us to the tournament itself and what it means and how it is. We've had some quotes from Mark McCall, the Saracens coach, talking about how special this tournament is for European rugby. You participated in it. Perhaps talk about the tournament first, and then we can discuss why it is that it does not grab the imagination of the world.
Yeah, well, I participated in probably a slightly different version where there were, obviously you get into the tournament by virtue of your performance of the previous year. And so, the top rungs of the various competitions get rewarded, and they're in the main competition, and then there's a secondary competition. The secondary competition has got status because there's some promotion aspects with that, but what happens is it's divided over the season, so you end up with some rounds before Christmas, and there's some rounds after Christmas. Now we've got a round of 16. It's broken up, so there's these gaps. And one of the problems in the pool games is that once it becomes obvious if you're not going to make it, if you're not going to qualify for the round of 16, then clubs will preserve their players for the club competition. So, in other words, they get mismatches and mismatched scorelines and things like that. So that takes away in the early part of the competition. But I think it's simply, we've just come off the Six Nations, and then you've got the finals of the club competitions, which are different in each country, and then you've got the Six Nations, which has just been, that was a terrific competition. Everyone was focused on that, so everyone's catching their breath. And they just drop in and then it drops out. And then so I think it's hard for people. I find it difficult to follow because there's so many games and they just appear and then you play and then they disappear again. You're back into the club competition again. So football makes it work. People are used to the FA Cup, for instance, that works in that cup. But this is across Europe, so it drops in and out. And I feel like that's where it loses momentum from a marketing media perspective. It drops in and out. Yeah, they're great clashes, and if you're involved in those clashes, there's a lot of interest. But if you're not, it's a weekend away. Like it's time to go skiing or whatever it is. That's what happens. So it's as a holiday. So I remember that. I remember that back in the day where if you weren't alive in the competition, people were they're off skiing or something like that. Like it's just like, oh, I'm having a holiday. So it's that's one of the problems. It just doesn't have the continuity, and so people forget. And if you're not alive in it, because it's a European competition, if you're not alive in it, it just becomes distant. Like the game's happening, you're in France, the game's happening in Ireland or something like that, or Scotland or whatever. You just don't have any interest. So so there's those sorts of aspects. I don't know if it had its own window, it might generate some momentum like Six Nations, but again, we're battling for windows for everything, aren't we?
Well, it's part of and I did have a conversation with Alan Gilpin, which I would commend people to go and have a listen to on the Rugby Unity channel. We crossed a range of different issues, and we did talk about the global calendar. And I don't think there's any immediate hope that, like even at that international level, that it'll get sorted. And it would seem that this exactly the same way, that it's unlikely that there would be a specific window like the football, like the UEFA European Championship, where the tournament is played and you watch it and you enjoy it.
No, that's right. I mean, if you look at the teams you read out in the round of 16, I mean, a lot of the good sides are still there. But big scorelines. I didn't see any of these games, so I will have a look during the week, look at the highlights and whatever. But again, I go on to Stan and I put on the competitions to see what's going on. And it's just hard to know the context unless you get on the internet and start looking. You lose track of the context. Six Nations was a big focus, and that even they shortened that and made for a more intensive competition, whereas this is dragged out. This is drawn out across the whole of the club competition, so it gets lost. And then teams at this time of the year in their domestic competitions, like in France, for instance, there's promotion and relegation. There's other things that in play, and so teams are fighting to stay to make sure they don't get relegated out of the top 14, for instance. So there's other things in play that become more important and more immediate. So that's where it gets lost. It's a good competition, but it gets lost, I believe. And there's more teams now than when I played. I mean, you've got all the South African teams are in it. They weren't in it back in the day, so there's just a lot of teams. I mean, that's a big competition. Not the premiership. The other one has just got so many teams in it. I was looking at the ladder the other day, and it's just like there's so many teams. But it's hard to understand how that even functions as a competition. There's just so many teams.
So the quarterfinals are this weekend in the European Championships. Bath will take on Northampton. Glasgow against Toulon. Leinster will play Sale, and Bordeaux will play Toulouse in the quarterfinals, which are this weekend. Super Rugby, we haven't really spoken about it too much, and we are at week 8 in Super Rugby. Some of the results there: the Crusaders 69, the Drua 26, Chiefs 42, the Waratahs 14, and the Force convincing winners over the Reds in Brisbane, 42 points to 19. Have you had much of an opportunity to watch the Super Rugby at so far this year, Ewen McKenzie?
Depends on the weekend. Some weekends I get right into it. Other weekends I haven't. But I definitely sit there and watch the highlights. The Crusaders, they did this last year. They started slow and then they built into the competition. And that's exactly, they look good. Tactically good. They played the game that they used the driving maul and other tactics which I think are perfect for the game. They just kept at it, and they had a relentless look about them again. So mid tournament they've really started to find their groove, and their players are finding form. So that was no surprise there. The Chiefs Waratahs game was actually a good contest. First half, and then they just pulled away in the second half. So there's something ominous there. I didn't watch that game as closely, but I've watched the highlights of that. And the Chiefs they kept at it, and the Waratahs dropped off. And the Reds, Western Force, I watched the replay of that a couple of times. Yeah, the Western Force have been unlucky in this tournament. They've been quite competitive without getting results. And that game it all came together for them. Whereas the Reds, I believe the first couple of games of the tournament they were lucky to get the win. So they they got a couple of wins. They got in the last 2 minutes they scored 2 tries against the Brumbies, for instance. So you can focus on that, but you can say in reality you were really down, and there was a decision that went your way, and so the Reds have probably been maybe a little bit artificially going better than they probably thought, and they got caught out by the Force, who have been promising but not quite delivering. And so that was a pretty impressive outing. And Molina, the second rower, he played a terrific game. Like I've seen him play for Argentina. He's a terrific player, but his ability to carry the ball in contact and drag and drive players back and he scored 3 different tries each one, but they were all impressive. He's a very impressive player, and he made his impact straight away. So, they deserved a win, and I guess they deserved the win of that magnitude because they just stuck it to the Reds the whole time. So there's a few questions there for the Reds to sort out.
Certainly Molina lifted the Force, didn't he, in many ways. He played with such intent that he really carried the team forward with him, and they played with a lot of confidence, the Force.
The way the game's played now, you need to have people that can bend the line. And so you've got to be able to bend the line. He had the ability to bend the line and get the whole team on the front foot. And so that's, when he carried the ball, he bounced people backwards. He pushed them backwards. He got the team on the front foot. So then you're playing off front foot ball. It's much easier for the halfback and everyone behind it. So it's a huge difference when that happens. So he did that, and he just looked like he'd been in that team for a long time, and he really just turned up. So so for him to be able to just drop into that team and make things happen the way he did was very impressive.
Off the field, to me, the crowd looked a bit thin at Suncorp there. Is the Easter weekend a challenging weekend in Brisbane to attract people?
I don't know, you're asking the wrong guy. When I was there, we had good crowds all the time. So, it was noticeably shallow on players. I guess that game, if I think backwards over the years, that game probably hasn't had the aura of maybe a Waratahs game or something like that. The new kids on the block sort of thing. The Western Force are always a difficult team to play in a derby context. It's like that's their... they treat those games like grand finals, and fair enough. They're trying to, create their reputation and whatever. So they love getting stuck into the Australian teams, and I'm sure the Australian teams don't enjoy playing them. So, but the crowds, I don't know. I don't recall there being massive crowds for that type of fixture. You don't get the Kiwis turning up. If you're playing Auckland or something like that, you'll get the Kiwis that live in Brisbane turning up. So. That's probably part of it. But it is disappointing across the board. I look at the crowd. I always look at the crowds. You can't avoid it. It's in the background there. You're looking to see what's going on. Canberra's been very light on crowds despite the team doing well. Even in New Zealand, the crowds have been light. So you always think, maybe there's more behind the camera. And often that is the case. The camera's on the same side as the but when you look across the other side of the field, there's been a couple of good crowds down in Dunedin and whatever, but on the whole, it's a bit thin.
Yeah, I'm sure it's of concern to the people organising the competitions, trying to reactivate that crowd attending.
You've got other things in play. I mean, they're getting political, but the disposable income's a bit stretched at the moment. In Australia, you've got fuel and, the interest rates have gone up, things like that. So when people are thinking, I can just sit at home and watch it on TV, and you've got Stan offering the games live, so you can just dial in and watch it. Often that's an affordable way of watching the game. And that's the reality. Even in AFL, I was watching the Melbourne play Melbourne played on the weekend against the Suns. And this is probably a good example. The Suns is a new team. Melbourne playing at the MCG. There was bugger all people there. So there is a following for the traditional teams, the teams that have got longer histories, and so those supporters travel. But when in that game of the Gold Coast, there was no crowd. And Melbourne played really well, but it was a home game for them. But there's no crowd.
Well, there was a match it was in the AFL a couple of weeks ago. It was a Thursday night match in Geelong, and I didn't watch the whole game, but I did just scan it, and I thought, gee, that's not a big crowd for a Thursday night in Geelong. I would have thought that it would have been packed. But then on the other hand, yesterday at Parramatta in Sydney, between the Tigers and the Parramatta Eels, obviously a real derby match, it was packed and a great atmosphere. So, yes, perhaps people are picking and choosing as to what they do go to attend.
That can be a function of just that there's a lot on offer in terms to watch. It is easier to sit at home and watch it on TV. And I'm sure that the economy is playing a part. People are making decisions about their disposable income at the moment. And, I've already found that this weekend, I mean, everyone's, you're paying extra cost because of the public holidays. You've got to pay more to buy coffee or whatever. They hit you with a surcharge, and everything's suddenly costs more because of the public holiday tax that goes on everything. So sales, it is a decision, and I'm sure that's part of it. But also, I do think that the traditional teams, I mean, in AFL, the Western Sydney team in the AFL, it plays at a smaller stadium, doesn't seem to have the same sort of size crowds. But you look when South Sydney Rugby League were playing at Homebush, the people don't want to travel out there. Now they're going to start moving their home games back into the eastern suburb, back to the Allianz, and that's going to make a difference. I think you'll see bigger attendances. So there is the portability of your fan base is the diehards will get there, but a lot of people will say, I'll just watch it on TV.
No, it would be interesting across in Australia at least, to do a comparison year on year as to where those crowds are.
When I was coaching at the Waratahs, we were averaging 34,000 a game. That was the average. The Reds is 30-something thousand. So, we're playing the finals. Finals and things like that. But people want to be entertained. They will make the effort. But I also think that since that time, it has become easier to watch it literally watch it because everything's sequenced. I mean, I do it myself now. I'll watch the first quarter of AFL, then I'll switch across and I'll watch some league, then I'll switch back and watch the end of the AFL. Sometimes that just lines up that way. And if the union's on, I'll be doing the same, So I'll just move around between the sports.
We're not talking rugby, we're building it. Rugby Unity.
All right, very good. Well, people, the third voice, it is your turn to put the questions to Ewen McKenzie. And Charlie Smith from South Africa says, thank you for your insights and your way of engaging with the public and growing the game that we all love. Charlie, no problem at all. So, Ewen McKenzie, Charlie wants to know, if you take the top 8 countries in the world, what will be the reasons for the top 8 countries individually to either A, win the 2027 Rugby World Cup, or B, lose the 2027 Rugby World Cup? So the top 8 countries, what's going to lead to success or not success?
Well, I'll put down discipline as the first. Discipline will matter, I think. The pressure of the occasion, whatever, discipline is going to make a difference. And I'm probably talking, and we're seeing a better outcome this year in terms of cards. I know I bang on about that, but that's the reality for me. Last year was a lot of games were decided by cards. That's been better this year. So but discipline will play a part because every game's a one-off in the tournament. And so if you get it wrong, you're in trouble. You've got to be in the contest. So the physicality of your team in attack and defence. So you've got to be able to front up. You can't afford to. You've got to be able to win the battle of metres, because there's a lot of one-pass rugby that goes on, and you've got to be able to trap the other team behind the defensive line. And if you're in attack, you've got to be able to get across it. And we saw that with Molina, for instance, on the for the Western Force. You get them on the front foot, and it's a different game. So that's an important part. I think the aerial contest will still be an important part, and that's a function of the kick, the chase, and obviously the contest. So there's three elements to that, and so I think that's still going to be an important part. We're already seeing a lot of creativity. I saw a try just on the weekend. It was Leinster scored it. The guy makes a break up the middle of the field, and then he sort of half tackled and he just poked the ball across. So it's like a kick pass to the winger who scores in the corner. Like you don't see it from that situation. He did it in an impromptu way. It wasn't a planned cross kick or a planned kick pass. It was just done on the run, and he just knew that the winger would be there, and so there's going to be more of that. So the ability to be able to kick in attack and create opportunity there, that's the other part. To be able to respond to that is a big part. And we've seen a lot of teams have advanced the cause in this year and last year, and so that's going to be who can handle that side of the game, the attacking kicking part of the game, and then obviously the contest in the air that goes with that. Set piece, I'm just seeing set piece cancelling itself out. I don't see the energy. The only thing that's changed in set piece in the super competition is that that they award the free kick and the halfback just taps and takes off from the middle of the scrum. So that law's not in for the World Cup that we know of. But there's no real refereeing of the crooked throws or anything anymore. That seems to be very arbitrary. I think I've seen one or two. Otherwise, everyone just forgets it. So the line that's really not. It's just the ability to be able to get the ball to the bloke that's jumping in the air. So there's the skill of the hooker's not really in play there, or at scrum time in terms of the feed. So I don't see the contest there. You've got to be able to win your ball for sure, but I don't see that as a contest the way it is at the moment. That might become more of a contest if the refereeing wants it to be that way. They are speeding the game up there. The referees are speeding it up. So fitness will be the other part. You've got to be able to play, and the quality of your bench. Quality of the bench for me is critical. The players coming into the game, whether they can make a difference. No point players coming in and being emotionally overtuned and giving away penalties and things like that. They've got to come in and actually add to the performance. And we see some very good bench contributions in recent times, and that'll be important. You've got to have the depth to be able to come in and change the game.
So all of those things, as you're reading through or as you're speaking, I'm writing down discipline, physicality, the aerial contest, the kick, the chase, the contest, the creativity in attack, fitness, quality of bench, and the set piece perhaps cancelling itself out. The only thing the one team that really comes to the fore is South Africa, isn't it? They start clear favourites for the 2027 World Cup this far out.
Yeah, I think that they worked out that formula pretty quick. They've been able to predict where the game is going to go, or they've done that, and they've got the physiques and the people and the depth to be able to deal with that. So depth is probably another issue too. You've got to make sure. We saw some teams struggle. You lose a couple of players, like England lost some front rowers, so did Ireland early in the Six Nations, and I don't think it helped them. South Africa have got them up, but I think France has worked it out too. They've got their own way, but they've been able to work out the physicality side of it, and the opportunistic attacking using the kick is another area that they've worked out. So I think France aren't too far behind South Africa. They've got to manage the discipline side of it. Both teams do, really, in a way. It strongly gets down to what the referee sees and what he doesn't see, and that's I fear that in these competitions that it's just going to get down to some sort of decision, and we've seen it in the past, and everyone talks about the time, and then it gets forgotten. But that's the reality. We do rely on the referees to manage the game. I think too much. That's the way it's gone. But my fear is that the competition becomes, it gets down to that moment, and all the work that gets done gets down to that moment. Hopefully it doesn't. But just the players sort it out themselves.
How can it be any other way, though, other than the reliance on the referee? Because I think we got to the point at one stage where we were relying so heavily on the technology to get it right for us, to starch out of the...
No, I get that. We saw the other day that I think the try that the Waratahs scored a try and it was disallowed, and they showed... After the game, you see clips and photos and stills and whatever showing that he probably did score the try, but it was ruled out by the TMO. So I know it gets down to that. And when I first started playing the game, my father said that to me. He's not a rugby guy at all. He said the referees have too much control. And I said, yeah, you're probably right. He said that to me back in 1980 something, right? So too much ability to influence the result. And I'm not saying that in a sinister way. I'm just saying that it is what they see, right? And there's a lot of things to see. When you're watching the general play in rugby and the continuity of that, there's a lot of things to see. And, the self-regulation of the old days meant that the ball just, the ball appeared at the back of a ruck and you played on. The referee didn't have to manage what was going on inside the ruck too much, obviously foul play, but otherwise the players made sure the ball was available. So that's not the case now. He's got a lot to look at, and I don't know why the referees do it. To be honest, I commend them. I'm not actually critical of the referees. It's the way the game's set up, and they've got a lot to handle, a lot on their plate, and I fear that it gets down to a decision, and they're trying to do the right thing. There's no question about that. But that it all hangs on something that and we saw that in the final, the analysis of the penalty at the end of the game between England and France, that got debated ad nauseum. So that's where you end up, and the poor old referee gets left with it. So it's what they can see, and there's just a lot to see. Like if you want to pull the rule book out, there's a lot to look at.
Well, in my discussion with Alan Gilpin, he revealed that referees are called upon to make 800 decisions in a match. So they're clearly doing the work and trying to,
quantify it,
make the game, well, not just to quantify it, but to try to understand it. And this is all part of the Mark Robinson review that is being conducted at the moment, is to try to come up with a form of the game and the involvement of the referee to whatever particular point to make it as fair and as entertaining as possible. And interestingly, there's an upcoming interview I've done on Rugby Unity with Angus Gardner, the Australian referee, which I'm sure people will be interested in as he talks about the way that they think about the game and the way that they are working on trying to build consistency into the way that the game is adjudicated.
That's 10 decisions a minute they're making.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot. And that's, again, I go back to, and I feel for the referees there, but it's what they see, and that's why we, as coaches, we bother to analyse the refereeing, because if you get their refereeing profile and you see what they, and we did this, I did this in my day, I know Eddie does it. You get there and you look at their profile, you'll see what they find important in the game to referee. Now, there's a whole bunch of things. Okay, there's 800 decisions. There's a whole bunch of things that are penalisable and whatever. It's a question of how many of those you're going to try and tick off in a game, whether that's your approach to the game. I'm just going to tick off all these things and make sure I've got an offside here and a crooked throw there and something else, an off feet in attack. And so I always used to look at the attack versus defence penalties. It's not generally, you find that the defending team will get penalised more, like significantly more, because that's the way that they tend to watch the negativity of teams trying to close things down or whatever. But some referees, you'll find that there's a higher percentage of attacking penalties. So that's the penalties where the player gets penalised for going off his feet in the clean out or coming in from the side on the clean out, those sorts of things. So and they affect momentum. And I saw a bunch of those in tests last year where it actually cost Australia in a bunch of test matches. They were hot on attack, and the referee decided to go off the feet. Now, I never saw an off-the-feet penalty for the rest of the game, yet I saw plenty of people going off their feet cleaning out. So that's the bit I struggle with, is that you can penalise. I don't mind if you penalise it, but just keep penalising it every time it happens. But it doesn't happen that way. And if you just tick in the box. So it is worthwhile analysing how the referees, what they focus on, because it does help you understand how the game might be managed, and make sure that you're when it goes to discipline, that you're not lazy on the clean out and just flopping on the ground, for instance, or you're not competing too long for the ball, or you are rolling out of the way. There's some really good parts of the game that the referees, if they want a good game, they try and set the offside line. They'll try and make sure players are not laying around at the back of the ruck interfering, and you generally get a better game that way. So they'll set the tone early on, and that's good, because you know it's coming. And if the referee does that, and so there are referees that there is a refereeing profile, just like there's a team profile and a player profile.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that about what I saw, because in that last weekend of the Six Nations, Luke Pearce, on a number of occasions, the players obviously said, questioned him, and you picked it up on the microphones where he quite clearly said, "Well, that's not what I saw. That's not what I saw," and that was how.
Well, that's a good response.
But exactly, and I think that's where we need to get to as an acceptance of the referee, and giving them every opportunity to make the correct decisions. But I just don't think there's enough technology in the world that would be able to, ensure that you are 100% sure that every decision is correct on a rugby field. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah, the issues around the pick and drive attack 5 metres out from the line, you see it all the time. I watch it on the weekend. If you just go through a highlights package, you can see the nature of tries. They're obviously long range, interesting tries, creative, but there's a whole lot of tries that are scored just when you're picking and driving near the line. The critical thing is with the referees trying to see if the ball's grounded, and they are very active in trying to see if they can see where the ball is. But teams, conversely, are very good at being able to wrap up the defender and obstruct the vision of the camera, so they make it unclear about whether the try has been scored. In the old days, the referee just awarded the try on the basis of logic. He mightn't have seen it, but he just says logically that would have been scored. Like, I don't see how that could have been impeded without anyone trying to be negative. So it stacks on, and then the ref can't see anything, so he goes held up, and they go back out for a scrum, or it goes to the dropout, which I don't understand. I don't see how you can be rewarded for getting over the try line. The defensive team is rewarded by getting a dropout and taking the pressure 30 metres, 40 metres up the field again. I just don't get that. It used to be a 5 metre scrum, and the attacking team got another go, and you got a chance to do your pushover tries and things like that. That's all been taken out of the game, and that. If you had a good scrum, you're able to use it, and you get a pushover try. The only pushover try I've seen in the last couple of years was in the Women's World Cup. There's only one. The England scored it under the post. That's the only pushover try I've seen.
I totally agree with you on that. I just think that doesn't make any sort of sense in terms of the contest. And Mark Robinson, put that one on your list, mate. We need to get that one fixed.
It's rewarding teams trying to. They say, great defence. Or is it really great defence? All you're doing is it's like Italians at the airport. You hug the bloke, fall over on your back, and everyone just blocks the bit. That's what it is. It's not great tackling. It's just hugging the guy so that the ball can't make contact with the ground. Okay, so and that scenario, it's an important one to resolve or to think about, because that attacking scenario and that try scenario is maybe 30 or 40% of the tries at the moment. Last couple of years it was maul tries from line. Everyone was kicking the line out and drive them all over. That's generally much easier to see. But the pick and drive try, because a lot of teams now they're doing free kicks at scrums. Teams will take the tap option and they'll just play, and they'll just keep playing. They might get another penalty. They might force a yellow card, or they invite the opposition to do, as I said, and just be like the Italians at the airport, hugging the guy over the line, and then you end up with a dropout, so that the pressure goes back up the field. So I think it's something that I don't know how that came about, but in the old days it was you got to have a scrum now, and and you got to then then if you got a good scrum, you get to use it.
Charlie also tosses in another question. At the amateur level, when you do not have the necessary numbers and quality, how do you instill discipline and culture within your club? So if you're challenged for numbers and quality players, how do you build culture and discipline into your club?
It's always the club system tends to be the interface between aspiration and participation. So you've got the guys that want to train a couple of nights a week, have a beer on the Thursday night and play on the weekend, and then have beers after the game. Maybe get out of the house, I don't know. Get away from the wife, I don't know. That's what they want to do. So that's and interdispersed, you've got young guys coming through and they want to be aspirational. They want to play for their state or their country or whatever. So it's always a difficult job, but all you can do is reward the good behaviours in the end. So if you've got a person that doesn't turn up to training or is late or whatever, if you keep picking him because maybe he's the best player, then you're rewarding that. And everyone sees if you start making exceptions. So you've got to try and say this is the minimum standard, because you can't have you're not in the world of 1%. You're not in the world where people are getting paid and whatever, so it's different. So you've got to have some minimum standards that's how the team's going to function. And you just got to keep rewarding players that want to follow those minimum standards. That's be that turn up on time, how many times you train during the week, if there's any extra work to be done, just discipline aspects, and then also how you play. If you're just going to get out there and do frivolous things and give away stupid penalties, then obviously you're not going to reward that either. So you've got to work out if you're playing the game to be competitive in a competition, or whether you're playing the game to be social. And if you're social, maybe you should be playing in the sixth grade, the sixth grade team or the fifth grade team, whatever it is. And you've got to try and bring the aspirational players. They mightn't be as good a player at that point in time, but if you reward them and they've got aspiration, they'll get better because they'll do the little things to try and improve. Whereas the other guy, they just want to have fun and have a few beers. Well, they can do that playing fourth grade or something like that. You've got to try and make sure that you work out what each player is trying to do, what's their key motivation, and try and get a team full of people with the same motivations.
Charlie, thank you for your questions and for your interest. Ewen McKenzie, the next question from Rugby Analyst from YouTube. When you were coaching in France, what was the culture between you and the other head coaches? Would you go for a glass of wine after the match with the opposing man in charge? And do you have any good stories about the times you were coaching and some of the friendships perhaps you made with the other coaches?
I coached there. Fabrice Landreau was the forwards coach at Stade Francais, and we still touch base on the social media side of things. I track what he's doing. He's done a few different things. He was a good guy. It's like any outfit. You tend to develop relationships with different people. The French, when you play at home, there was always a function post game. We'd go to Roland Garros. Roland Garros was obviously where they play the French Open. Tennis is just around the corner. We'd go there and have a big function downstairs, and you talk to people and get interviewed and whatever. The opposing team might be there, might not. It depends on the travel arrangements. If we played away from home, we're generally on the TGV somewhere in the south of France. So you're maybe making your way to the airport, but to the train station to get back to town. So it just depended. We played a game. We played Biarritz actually in Spain. One game they hired one of the big soccer venues just inside Spain, so we didn't play them at their home ground. And we had a function with them, like a sit-down meal and whatever. I think it started at 1 o'clock in the morning. So that's when we're having dinner. So it's a different environment. You tended to catch up with people. Sometimes there was someone you knew on the opposition team, not so much with the coaching crews. you tended to converse or whatever, but it's the same thing. There's sponsors' commitments and things like that you have to do. But there's also, like when you're away, there's always travelling fans or local fans of your team. They'd bring in the local delicacies or whatever, so you'd be feasting on cheese, wine, whatever the local specialty is, and everyone loved all that. So, so it was different. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed all that side of it. It probably wasn't as technical in terms of conversations post-game. I was trying to make the game more, empirical, and they possibly didn't. Maybe they didn't like that in the end. I don't know, but I tried to get them to understand the game. But we played in the semi-finals in my first year. We played Perpignan in the semi-finals. We lost it, so we were close to doing all right. So yeah.
All right. So listen, we do have more questions here. MT Sullivan, Sean and Malcolm from New Zealand, and we will come to your questions, gentlemen, next week. So thank you, and to all of you who are submitting questions, please keep them coming wherever they be on social media, YouTube, the survey. So please, if you keep the surveys coming, they're really interesting just to understand a little bit more about you, the audience. And all you have to do is jump onto Substack and fill that survey out. And while you're there, you can also sign up for the Big Three. I have been enjoying the Big Three. It's the one place, the one digest where you can go and you can see everything that you need to see. And here is the latest version of the Big Three. So if you just jump onto Substack, sign up for it, and basically it will give you everything that you need to know. You will no longer have to scroll around the internet looking for any sort of news because it's all in one place. So Ewen McKenzie, couple of things before we leave just quickly. The women return this weekend, the Women's Six Nations round coming up this weekend. France versus Italy in Grenoble, England versus Ireland in London, Wales versus Scotland in Cardiff. The ticket sales for the Red Roses versus Islands at Allianz, more than 60,000 sold so far. So that's just an incredible impact post the Rugby World Cup. And indeed, the Pacific Four kicks off in Sacramento, featuring the United States, New Zealand, Australia and Canada. USA take on New Zealand and Canada taking on Australia. So Ewen McKenzie, great to see the ladies getting back to work post the Rugby World Cup. What could we expect, do you think, from those two tournaments post what was such an impressive Rugby World Cup for the women?
Well, I'm glad that it's like it's happening as soon as it is, because there's a lot to capitalise on since that World Cup. I was just looking through the draw there. England play France in the last week. I wonder if that's orchestrated, but that's you've got teams there who are pretty competitive. France were obviously competitive, England winners. And there's a lot there, aspirational, a lot of opportunity there for the other teams to try and improve their lot. So I think it's terrific, and it's going to be supported by the fan base. As you said, the ticket sales are terrific for England. We just need to see more of this. I think that we're right at the front end of something, creating a really some really good stable product in the competition, rather than just sort of being random. That's always been my feeling. It's been a bit random. Now it's a bit structured. It's following a similar sequence to the men's tournaments, and the fans are latching on, which is good. So hopefully the quality of the football is just going to be better. And England have set a pretty high benchmark, and you can bet the other teams will be clambering. Maybe not France, but the other teams will be clambering over the videotapes and looking to see how much better they can be. And I think we've seen this in women's cricket in particular. Like that's in Australia, that mirrors the men's program. And you can see the whole skill, tactical, everything's just moved very quickly to really high quality stuff. And I think that's what's going to happen. I just need to have more competitive teams. We need England's. Unfortunately for England, you need other teams to be able to come up to their standard to make it. You don't want to have just one team sitting out there. And it's a good thing whenever there's a team that's dominant. In my area, it was obviously the All Blacks. You did everything you can to try and get games against them and to try and play them as often as you could so you inoculate yourself and learn. The only way you learn is by playing them. And it's the same when I was coaching provincially. You wanted to play the Crusaders because they were the dominant team. So this is a great opportunity for those other teams. France were very competitive in the World Cup. Italy, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. So it's a perfect opportunity for them to get more games against England and improve their wares.
And great that the Pacific Four is on at the same time, so as we have a number of quality matches being played around the world, so we can bring focus to that, which we will over the coming weeks. So looking forward to talking about that. Something else that caught my eye over the weekend was the 2026 Guernsey Easter Rugby Festival in South Africa. In its 17th year, good to see Nudgee College from Queensland, Brisbane participating, but Durban, High, Westville and Guernsey, they all won 3 matches at that particular tournament, and there were 700 boys and girls playing in 42 matches over the weekend. The South African schools scene is something else, isn't it? The way that they get in and get behind the schoolboy and schoolgirl rugby there.
It's amazing. If you get on YouTube or something and have a look, you'll see when the big schools play, the grey colleges and the like, when they play against each other, the ceremony that goes with the players getting on, just getting onto the field, like it's big time stuff. It matters. I think it's the same here in Australia with them when the big teams play. But Nudgee College did really well. They beat Grey College.
Beat Grey.
With a drop goal at the end of the game. So, and that's a real surprise. That was a real surprise there. And now I saw some insinuation that maybe Grey College didn't have their best players out there due to the nature of the tournament. The tournament's quite compact. You've got to play a lot of games in a short space of time. Doesn't matter. The scoreboard's there. they won. Like, you got to be able to pick it, and that's a feather in their cap. It's good to see them on the road. I've got to say, I always admire teams getting out of Australia and actually plying their trade somewhere to see how they go. It's such a learning experience. Like being in South Africa is a learning experience itself culturally. But a great opportunity rugby-wise for those guys.
And the memories for those boys from Nudgee, and everyone who travelled with them, they'll never 100%. Forget it.
You won't forget it, and you tend to remember all the emotional things in your life. That'll be a treasured memory, but also will hopefully be the thing that spurs a few of them on to kick on and become Wallabies and whatever else, because they suddenly realise that it's a big sport. We know what it's like in Australia, and we're Nudgee. We're one of the better schools. But you come over to South Africa and you see how the schools put on a show and put on that sort of tournament. You start to think, rugby's a pretty big game. We hear a lot about league and AFL, but rugby's a pretty big game when you get out in the world, and so that might just make a few more of them stick with it post school and kick on and become representative players.
All right, now listen, one quick last one, because I just want to get your insights. Obviously, the discussion, we now have a new coach of the All Blacks, new coaching staff around him. Coaches and captains, there's a sort of debate going on, Scott Barrett versus Ardie Savea. But as a coach, how do you think about the captain? How did you think about appointing your captain? What did you want in the captain when you did that?
For me, the captain has to be in the team. You know what I mean? Like, he's got to be in the team. So if you're picking a team, he's got to be in it. Now we don't know what Rennie's going to pick in terms of his team. There's a few options in the second row department. Whether Barrett's he's on sabbatical at the moment, whether he's the man or not, we don't know because he hasn't been playing. You've got to be in the team. He's got to be respected by his his peers. So that's first and foremost. So he might not make that decision until he gets around to picking the team and seeing what's going on, because everyone else is out there battling away, and it's carte blanche for everyone else. They're all out there. No one knows who's going to be in the All Blacks. They might have known last year, but they don't know this year. So we don't know what the team's going to look like. So this is classic media. They'll speculate. It might be someone else. There might be some other candidate. I don't know, but he might do something different. But we won't know until he picks a team, unless he wants to go early and make the call. But I think that's, in his situation, that would be folly. I think he should let the tournament play out, let everyone play to the best of their ability, and then obviously picks his squad and then makes that decision, because right now he's in a good position. Everyone's playing their hearts out and trying to impress him.
Mm.
And there's no point in trying to play favourites right now. It's when he's got time. You don't need to establish who the captain is. I know it's always good to have a face of the team and whatever, and to answer questions, but there's plenty of senior players around that they can use for media and promotional purposes in the meantime. I think I'd probably hold off on that decision and just see how it looks, especially when the incumbent captain's not actually playing at the moment, so you don't know what form he's in. And that's where you start to get trapped a little bit if you just pick on past. So I think he's got a chance to pick for the future, and he's got to try, and if he says it's about form, then he's got to pick on form. I don't know what his criteria is going to be, but if he's picking it on form, then he's got to leave the whole thing open and see what happens.
Actually, just one more before we go, because it'll run out of juice before too much longer. But Henry Pollock, the superstar from England, has signed with Eddie Hearn from Matchroom Sport, the darts and boxing promoter. What's your thoughts? What was your reaction when you saw that? Because I'm still not sure.
Well, I actually don't know. Is he going to play darts or is he going to box? I don't know. I don't see him boxing.
Well, he's going to get a lot of publicity. That's what he is going to get, is a lot of publicity.
And everyone's got a comment about that. So he certainly knows how to get everyone. He's a polarising sort of figure. But he's an interesting guy. I watched a bit of Northampton on the weekend because I like to see how he plays, because he's starting with Northampton, number 8. And he has got this innate ability on the field to pop up at key moments. He can read the play, like that's a skill in itself. So he's got great ability. He's got to make sure that his rugby on the field parallels what's going on the off field. He can't let the rugby drop away. I mean, it's very difficult if you're suddenly not in the England setup, not in the team or something like that. It becomes you drop off. You can drop off quickly. But he's got personality and whatever, and I don't think they should be trying to box that in so much, but I don't know what the purpose of his of this signing is. But clearly there'll be an end game, and it'll be about making a few dollars and boosting profile.
More money.
Yeah,
but it will be interesting to see a personality as big as someone like Eddie Hearn coming in to rugby in England and shaking it up. As he does. There's a Netflix documentary on Eddie Hearn, which I'd commend people to have a look at. It shows you just about the way he goes about his work, and look, I think it's got to be a good thing, because it will mean more publicity. It will mean more attention. It will probably mean more innovation in the way that we think about the game. So. I hope it works. I hope it works for Henry Pollock, and I hope it works for the sport.
Yeah, I made that comment earlier on in the podcast about do more of the same and you get more of the same. So he's definitely challenging that side of it. So you can't be critical in that space. The problem's going to be the interface between his manager and the rugby union, because he's going to want to push boundaries that maybe not have been pushed before, and they will see that they've got certain rights to the player. Like if as we know, whether you see him in an ad, you won't see him in an ad in an England rugby jersey. You'll see him in a white top or something like that. But you won't see him if there's no alignment with the union. You won't see him wearing any England. He'll be wearing something else, but he'll look like everyone knows who he is. It'll be something white, but it won't be the England jersey because everyone will be protecting their commercial entities and whatever that are associated with the game. Hopefully they can avoid that, and hopefully they can get some synergy going, and maybe they might take a few more players along with them. But the critical thing for Pollock, he's got to make sure that he's still on the England team. He's got to be He's got to be on the field every time they play a test. That's important.
But part of the Eddie Hearn business model is friction. So
okay, well, I watched that video. I'll have a look at the video, but I'm not.
Have a look at it. He's not there to make friends. So anyway, we will wait and see. And but anyway, it's as you say, that's a good way to wrap it up. That if you do the same thing, you get the same result. And we still we saw again. We often talk about on this program about the challenges, the financial challenges of the game. Munster Rugby Union, I think maybe a week or two ago, announcing a round of redundancies because of financial situation. So we still have a serious problem in the game around the finances that I know many people around the world are working very hard to resolve. But we do have to look at ways of unlocking more revenue into the sport so we can attract more people in more countries to our great sport.
England's doing that with the women's game. They're doing it with the team, obviously with personalities in it. Bums on seats is one metric, and I think that's when you're competing with other sports, it's a simple metric that you don't need to be a sports scientist to understand. When you're watching the game and there's no one sitting in the grandstand, that tells you something. So I think that that's the bit that England have got to focus on. They're going to keep making sure that their stadium's full, and it probably will be full anyway due to the commercial side of it. But the Munster situation, that across the board, other countries who aren't as well off financially have to consider the same thing. They've got to keep creating something. You're in the entertainment business, so if you want people to turn up, otherwise I'll just sit there and watch it on TV, and they won't turn up. So you've got to try and work out where you're going to be.
Interestingly, I was reading on The Athletic last night, the results are rolling in from the various Premier League football clubs. And it's a disaster. There's almost $1 billion of losses across the top couple of divisions, and very, very few of those Premier League teams are making money, and they're all being underwritten by wealthy investors. And so the business model, even for the Premier League, as big as it is challenged as well.
There's nothing to say that that in the world of entertainment, doesn't matter what sport it is, that people are they're feeding on different. It's a different profile than it was in the past. In the past, you could only see the game if you went to it. Now there's other ways of viewing it and whatever, and you can watch it. You can watch diced up games, and you can pick it up anywhere. So you got to be mindful of that. So all sports have an obligation to be able to be. You've got to be relevant, and so you've got to keep looking at that. And that's where we've talked about getting the Six Nations figures. You've got to have the metrics at your fingertips to be able to make these decisions. You just can't just keep thinking about the game as it was. And we have moved it on, and I bemoan certain things that have been lost around the functioning of the game. But ultimately, the game, you do need dollars to make the game work. And that's the same with all sports. So if you're suffering losses, you can guarantee one thing, businessmen and people, they won't suffer them for too long. They'll just change it. It'll change. And so we've seen that already in rugby, and maybe other sports even get hit the same way. Or there'll be a rationalisation of wages. Lots of things can happen to try and make the thing function better. We saw it in American football. I mean, there was they were giants, but now it seems to be a much cleaner sport, and the body shapes are far more similar. It's a different sport. They've remodeled that pretty quickly. Due to welfare and whatever else. So you've got to make the big calls.
We do have more to talk about, but we'll leave that for the moment. I thought this week we might be a bit quieter because not that much on compared to the previous weeks, but there you go. We have gone a little bit longer than we normally would, but there we go. When you're talking about rugby, there is always things to talk about, always of great interest as we pursue on Rugby Unity this mission of how do we help secure the future prosperity of rugby union around the world? Well, we've been around the world. We've spoken of things from schools to women's to men's and everything in between. And there's so much going on in our great game. And I would commend, if just going back and having a listen to Alan Gilpin, the CEO of World Rugby, to get a bit of an understanding of where he is. And last week also I spoke with Bill Gorin, the CEO of USA Rugby Union. A mate of mine rang me and said, great interview, which I was nice to hear from him. But also just go back and have a listen. It's really worth your time. If you are interested in the game, if you are interested in its future prosperity, those two interviews are well worth listening to, as is the Angus Gardner interview, which is coming up. A great conversation with a very good referee and a good bloke. So I commend that to you as well. So a big thanks to all of you. Please keep the comments coming. The surveys on Substack, comments, likes, shares, whatever it is, reviews on Apple and Spotify. It all helps us to be found. So if you would keep that coming as well, that would be good. And please sign up to the Big Three for your digest. If you want one place to get everything generated by AI technology, it will arrive in your inbox once a week and you can enjoy everything about our great game. Now, just on a personal note before we go, I just want to send a big shout out to my cousin Pat Gurr. Thought he was going to be a quadriplegic for the rest of his life after he had an accident, injury, an illness, post-surgery. Got some videos of him last night walking. Assisted, but walking upstairs, walking with some help. So, Pat, congratulations. Unbelievable feat to have got yourself back up. Sitting in that rehab hospital, I thought that was it. I thought you were in that chair forever, but that just shows you what you can do with resilience, with perseverance, and with everything else. So a big thanks to you. Big congratulations to you, to Karen, to the boys, to get back and keep at it. Very proud. All right. Okay, people, that's it for another week. And delighted to be with you once again. We'll be back at the same time in another week's time. But for the moment, people, please be kind to each other. My name is David Pembroke. Bye for now.